I ignored his texts for weeks, then found him on vacation with another woman. My boyfriend moved on because I went weeks without replying to his text messages. So I did something crazy to him, and now I wished I could go back in time. And before you call me a villain, let me explain. You can call me Elle and Dan for my boyfriend. We've been dating for about a year. Things were good at first. You know, those early stages of a relationship are always so great that I would think nothing would ever go wrong. But over the past few months, I started feeling off. It's not like anything major happened, just this slow burn of irritation and emotional distance. I couldn't even pinpoint why I was feeling that way. I just knew that the love I had for him had faded, and I just started hating him. Before, I always loved him being around me, but then his presence started irritating me. I stopped him from coming over. I was getting bored of him and his annoying presence, and I felt like he was too desperate and wanted our lives to be inseparable, and that kind of made me feel uneasy. I get we were in love, but please, the check-ins were just too much. I felt like he texted too much, called too much, like he wanted to talk to me every day and share details of his day with me. Even when we were not staying together, there was no space to breathe. I felt suffocated in the relationship, and maybe that's why I started hating him. No one should call me crazy. I know most people who have experienced what it means to be uncomfortable and suffocated in a relationship and just fall out of love with a person they don't want to lose can relate. Then I started being ashamed of his thoughts, actions, and words. Anytime we were outside, I felt embarrassed the moment he opened his mouth to say something. And it's not like he was saying anything wrong or stupid, it was just the way I felt, and I couldn't shake off that feeling. Like when we'd be in a restaurant and he'd casually try to make small talk with the waiter, smiling too much or adding a little joke, and I'd cringe inside, praying the conversation would end quickly. Or when we'd run into someone I knew, and he'd eagerly try to join the conversation, I'd feel my face heating up, wishing he'd just stand there and nod instead. I always tried to tell him to not speak up, and to just stay quiet. He listened sometimes, but sometimes he didn't. And when he didn't, I'd get this knot in my stomach, already counting the seconds until I could walk away from the situation. It got to a point where it was painfully obvious, even to him, that I didn't want us to be seen in public together anymore. So I stopped hanging out with him. I told him I just didn't have the time for that anymore, and I was busy with my own thing. What led to me ignoring him was when he did exactly what I told him not to. We were invited to a birthday party by a mutual friend, and I told him not to put on anything that would make us look bad. That was another thing with him. His dressing sometimes was dumb, and I hated it. As someone with a good fashion sense, it killed me to see him wear whatever trash he could put together. I knew he was going to wear whatever he wanted, so I warned him ahead of time. I specifically told him that if he didn't want to dress as instructed, then he shouldn't show up at the venue. But of course, he did whatever was on his mind. I arrived at the party scene first because I got off work early and also because I didn't want us to go together. Everything was going so well until he showed up looking like a laundry mistake. When I saw him, I was immediately embarrassed. I just rolled my eyes and quickly walked towards him, then pulled him into a corner. I asked him why he was dressed like that. He looked down at himself and said there was nothing wrong with what he was wearing, and he didn't understand what I was insinuating. I was so upset. I asked him how he expected a sexy girl like me, who was well-dressed, to stand next to someone who was dressing like him. To top it all off, most of the attendees knew he was my boyfriend. That just pissed me off more. I begged him to go change, but he refused. He said he was already there, so there was no need. I was frustrated the entire party, and the dumb girls who always had their eyes on him were telling him how good-looking he was, because they all had poor taste, and I guess that boosted his confidence and made him ignore me. He had people feeding him with fake and meaningless compliments, and he was eating it up. I was so annoyed I couldn't even have fun throughout the party. I just sat there, drink after drink, and when I got tired, I left. I was so angry because I had said I didn't want to see him next to me unless he went back to change, yet he acted like I didn't exist. That provoked me into drinking, and when I couldn't stand being around him anymore, I left. So you see, he ignored me first. Before I left, I approached him and told him how badly he made me feel because I asked him to do something that would actually elevate him, but instead he chose to listen to random girls and flirt with them right in front of me. So why was he keeping me around if he couldn't even listen to me? That realization alone was piercing because it made me look stupid, like I didn't even know what I was talking about. He said in response that I was making things up and that he was just friendly with everyone at the party and not flirty. But that wasn't my business, so I just walked out on him. I had already mentally bruised his face. Thanks to him, I didn't actually get to enjoy my friend's party, and she was a bit angry that I left early. I had to make up an excuse for that because I couldn't exactly tell her that my boyfriend was the reason I left. It was too embarrassing to mention. Gladly we made up. The next day, my boyfriend showed up at my door, and I refused to open it for him. He called me, and I refused to answer his call. I even made sure he heard my phone ringing and my voice inside, just so he'd know I was there and still not letting him in. After a while, he left. Then the next day, he showed up at my workplace trying to talk to me. My colleagues were watching, and these are the type of classy girls whose boyfriends pull up in clean rides and dress like they just stepped out of a fashion magazine, not the type to have a man who shows up looking like he got lost on his way to the grocery store. I was ashamed. I acted like I didn't even know him, like he was some random man causing a scene. I avoided his eyes completely, pretending to be busy with a call while my heart raced. He stood there for a bit, clearly frustrated, and then he went back. It was at this point I thought that maybe giving him some space and ignoring him for a bit would make me miss him again. Because I was already hating him, and at this point I felt he was acting desperate, and I hated when people do that. What was confusing was that I also didn't want to break up with him. I still wanted him to be a part of my life, and that's why I thought about pretending he didn't exist. Maybe it would help me miss him when I wasn't able to enjoy all the benefits of our relationship. So I texted him to never show up at my place again or come to my house without my permission, and he didn't. He just kept texting, asking that we should talk about it, but I refused. I told myself I'd reply later. I just wanted him to feel the pains of ignoring me, and then later turned into hours, then days. Weeks passed and I didn't respond. He still sent messages, and they were never the angry ones. He just stopped asking us to talk about what happened and focused on the usual, "How are you doing?" "How's your day?" or "Want to grab dinner?" stuff. I didn't answer. I thought he'd eventually stop trying, but part of me liked knowing he was still there, waiting. I liked it because I wanted him to work hard for the pain he caused me. I needed to see him pay for it, and that was his punishment. This was my way of getting revenge. But then, it backfired. After he constantly texted me for almost 4 weeks, he stopped. There were no more good morning texts and no how was your day texts, nothing at all. At first I told myself I didn't care, but I was lying. I was consumed with wondering what he was doing if he wasn't checking up on me anymore. Was he sick, busy, or worse? Had he gotten tired of trying? Still, I couldn't bring myself to talk to him. There was this part of me that genuinely didn't care whether I talked to him or not. It was as if my pride was holding my mouth shut. So when my friends asked me about him, I put on my calm, unbothered face and told them we weren't hanging out because he was so consumed with work during that period. They all nodded like it made perfect sense. And then someone made a joke about how most times guys pretend to be busy with work while cheating around. Everyone laughed. And I laughed too, because it was funny, but not my boyfriend. Maybe other guys, but Dan? No, that man was obsessed with me. The kind of obsessed where he'd drop everything just to see me for 5 minutes. So I didn't think he'd ever dare open his heart to another woman. I told them not to worry, that I had everything under control, and I really believed it when I said it. Then, last week, just 2 days later, a picture was shared in our group chat by a mutual friend who posted photos from a group trip to Hawaii. I wasn't expecting to see Dan there, let alone with a woman I'd never met, sitting next to him in every single picture. She wasn't just some random person in the background either. She was leaning on him, wearing his sunglasses, holding his hand like they'd been doing it forever. My stomach dropped. What made it worse was when the videos started coming in. There was one of them laughing together while she fed him a piece of pineapple, another of them walking side by side on the beach with their arms brushing like they were the only 2 people in the world, and one where she jumped on his back in the ocean while he carried her, grinning like a man who didn't have a girlfriend back home. I didn't have the right to feel betrayed, I know that. I basically disappeared on him for almost a month, but seeing him smile with her like that, it felt like a punch straight to my chest. I guess I thought he'd wait around forever. I thought I had more time to figure out my feelings. And what made it burn even more was the fact that this trip wasn't just some random vacation. It was supposed to be within our small circle of mutual friends, the couples we always hung out with. We'd talked about doing something like this months ago, planning it together in a casual, one-day kind of way. It wasn't set in stone, so when nothing happened at the time, I figured it just didn't work out for anyone's schedule, and I thought it was off the table completely. But apparently they went ahead without me, behind my back. They didn't even mention it in the group. No messages like, "Hey, we're making it happen after all, you coming?" Not even a word from Dan himself. Just smiles and sunshine in Hawaii posted for me to see. And there was Dan, not just blending in, but looking like he'd found a whole new role in someone else's life. I didn't just feel cut out by him. I felt betrayed by everyone in that group, like they all made a silent decision to move on without me. I ended up texting him that night. I couldn't hold myself together. I was breaking apart. He replied, "Hey, hope you're doing well. I'm seeing someone now, so I think it's best we keep our distance." His confirmation made me weak. The phone literally fell from my hands, so it clearly wasn't photoshopped or staged to make me jealous. It was actually happening. We didn't even officially break up, so why was he moving on? Isn't that just cheating covered up as moving on? I felt every bit of his words like they were cutting into me. I kept reading the text over and over, forcing myself not to respond. It was hard, so I just cried and cried. I had a presentation the following day at work, and I told myself I'd just focus on that, bury my head in the slides, and block everything else out. But the second I stood there in front of everyone, clicking through my points, I couldn't focus. My words kept tripping over themselves, and all I could see in my head was Dan on that beach with her, smiling like I never existed. I tried to push through, tried to pretend I was fine, but my chest felt heavy and my throat tightened until my voice cracked. Before I knew it, my eyes were stinging and the tears just came, right there in the middle of my presentation. I mumbled some excuse, grabbed my notes, and walked out fast. I didn't even expect what Dan did to hit me hard like that, but it did. I locked myself in the restroom and cried until my makeup was ruined and my breathing was uneven. When I finally calmed down, I splashed cold water on my face, hurried to grab my handbag, and left the office without a word to anyone. On my way home, I decided that I was going to Hawaii. A confrontation was needed. It's easy to hide behind text messages and avoid things over the phone, but face-to-face, that's where the truth really comes out, so I made my move. I went to Hawaii. Finding them wasn't hard. Every update of where they were and what they were doing was still being posted in the group chat, as they wanted to constantly remind me that they were having the time of their lives without me. I followed the trail of posts and stories until I saw them in person, laughing and drinking by the pool like they were in some honeymoon commercial. I didn't even hesitate. I walked straight to Dan and asked him just one question. "Why are you cheating on me?" Suddenly, all eyes were on us. People stopped mid-laugh and mid-sip or mid-whatever they were doing. My so-called friends in the group looked like they'd just seen a ghost, and strangers around us leaned in, whispering. They were all prepared for the drama that was about to unfold. The tension was thick enough to choke on. People started reacting, like there were awkward glances between them, and some exchanged those "this is messy" looks, while a few stifled laughs from the back. Instead of defending me, the atmosphere shifted against me, like I was the one who'd ruined their little getaway. And I could feel the judgment rolling off everyone. I was almost backing off due to the eyes that were on me, but if I didn't do it now, I don't think I would ever get a chance to, or the guts go. So I ignored every action that was trying to kill my confidence and continue with my confrontation. In all this, Dan and his new girlfriend didn't say a word in return. They just kept doing whatever lovey-dovey thing they were doing, laughing and ignoring me. I looked so stupid. Then I called the rest of them betrayers to their faces and told them they were snakes for doing this behind my back. That's when Dan, cool as ice, said they didn't even know I was still in the group chat since I never replied to anything. "So what's the need?" he said. "We're not together anymore, so why should they bother?" I told him I didn't understand the statement, but then, right there in front of everyone, one of them pulled out their phone and removed me from the group. Then she flashed the phone screen to my face and said, "Done. Now you can go back to minding your business." The humiliation hit me like a slap. I stood there paralyzed, feeling every pair of eyes burning into me before I turned around and walked away, wishing the ground would just open up and swallow me whole. I couldn't even go back home. I was a broken piece of mess. I don't even understand anyone anymore, especially Dan, because how does that even make sense? We didn't even break up, but now you've mistaken my silence for that, and even had the audacity to move on. I thought he loved me. I thought he was obsessed with me. Or was that just acting? The fact that it took this for me to realize how much I loved Dan broke my heart. I couldn't bear knowing he was having fun with another woman while I was somewhere in a corner crying with a broken heart. When morning came, I became more desperate. I wanted Dan to tell me that what I'd witnessed was just a prank, or that he was trying to make me jealous for ignoring him, and that he hadn't actually moved on. So I texted him, telling him I was still in Hawaii and hadn't left yet. I said if he still wanted to make it up to me, there was still time, because once I left, I wouldn't look back again. He didn't reply. I swallowed my pride and sent him another message, telling him how much I missed him, that I was sorry for ignoring him, and that I was just mad at him, but had forgiven him now. Still, this man didn't respond. That's when I realized how badly my silence had affected him, because I was experiencing exactly how badly his silence was affecting me. A moment later, one of my colleagues from work started calling, asking me what I was doing in Hawaii, fighting a man and his girlfriend instead of fixing the presentation I'd messed up. She said the whole office had seen the video and that our boss was deeply disappointed. My stomach dropped. I didn't even want to know how they got it, but I knew it was filmed by one of the trashy people who couldn't keep a single thing off social media and probably forwarded and reshared 100 times before it landed in the company group chat. I just ended the call and cried more. When I was a little more clear-headed, I packed up and went back home. The next day, I walked into the office trying to act normal, but I was summoned almost immediately. Sitting there in that small meeting room, with HR on one side and my boss on the other, I could already feel the judgment before they even spoke. They told me the company had to protect its image, and that my behavior, public fighting, going viral for the wrong reasons, and abandoning a key presentation was unprofessional and damaging. They didn't even sugarcoat it. My boss said they'd decided to let me go, effective immediately, and that they'd process 1 month's severance out of consideration for my past work. Just like that, I was unemployed, and not because I was bad at my job, but because my personal disaster had become everyone's entertainment. I wanted to scream that my personal life wasn't supposed to cost me my job, but what was the point? The video was everywhere, and I had ruined a presentation without coming back the next day to fix it. I just accepted my fate and gathered my things from my desk. By the time I stepped outside, the weight of everything crippled me. I couldn't even move my body or walk for a few minutes. I sat down in front of my company's building and wailed until I was sent away by security. I'd lost Dan, lost my dignity in front of friends and strangers, and now I'd lost my job. All because I thought I had more time to play with someone's feelings. Does ignoring your partner's texts for weeks equal breaking up? I really want to know because I'm confused. I'm thinking Dan was just out there trying to tarnish my image and never really loved me, because how did he move on that quickly? I can't believe I just ignored his texts and he found another woman. It feels like a nightmare, and I don't think I will be waking up from it anytime soon. Update. There's nothing much left to say. My life is a total mess. You could say I'm the human form of depression walking around in plain sight. I could blame myself for the way things turned out, or I could blame Dan. Maybe it's both. I've spent days, weeks even, trying to move on from everything, but it's just really hard. Every time I see Dan and his new girlfriend on social media, smiling and acting like they're the most in-love couple on earth, my stomach turns. I hate it. I hate her for being so pretty, and for slipping so easily into my space in his life, like she was always meant to be there. I hate that he looks at her the way he used to look at me. Everything about it is annoying. And it's not just them. Now, whenever I see any couple, I get irritated. I feel this ugly bitterness rise up in me, wishing they'd just break up for no reason, just so they could feel a fraction of what I feel. I hate that the whole world seems happy while I'm stuck here in pieces. I reached out to my friends recently, hoping for some kind of comfort, but instead I got cold shoulders. They still hold it against me for lying to them when they first asked about my relationship. I apologized, but it didn't seem to matter. They're all acting like they'd have been perfectly honest if they were in my shoes, which is a lie, and we all know it. But they'd rather keep their fake moral high ground than see things from my side. So here I am, with no Dan in my life and no friends I can count on. I feel so alone, and I'm just trying to figure out how to keep breathing when everything around me feels like it's closing in.